For years, the UwMic9 system from Saramonic has been talked about as the ultimate indie wireless audio system. Countless people on YouTube have told you they're good and cheap, but does that mean you should buy them? For this video, I want to know I'll be actually using the Lav mics that came with the transmitters I bought so you can hear what the sound is like. I'm in my house, it's a very controlled environment, there's a fridge on in the background, but this is sort of a best case scenario except for that one constant hum. So let's start with the build quality. For starters, these are made of metal, which is much appreciated. I hate cheap plastic crap. These feel tough, sturdy even. The antennas also have a pretty robust cable relief on them, which is good because people will always want to grab them by the antennas. Please don't do this. The battery trays that you put AA's into are plastic, so like everyone else has pointed out, be careful. Treat your gear nice, it'll do the same for you. Let's start with the basic two-person kit. In this kit, you get two body pack TX9 transmitters, one camera mountable RX9 receiver, two SRM1 omnidirectional lavalier microphones, a 3.5mm cable, a 3.5mm to XLR cable, and a cold shoe mount adapter. All of these packs also include a belt clip. Nice. The transmitters and receivers look almost identical. On each, you have 4 buttons on the front. Power, set, plus, and minus buttons. You navigate with the plus and minus buttons, then hold set to change a setting and click set again to confirm. The transmitters have one input for your Lavs, while the receiver has a 3.5mm output for your camera or recorder and a headphone output for those of you running a camera with no headphone jack so you can still monitor the audio. The receiver also has an extra antenna, which is great because it can actually communicate with 2 transmitters at once. Now, for the optional additional pieces of kit with the UwMic9 system. The XLR transmitter has a similar setup as far as the buttons go, but it also has the addition of a 48-volt phantom power option in the menu. But the XLR receiver is a little bit different. It has power, plus, and minus buttons. Instead of holding set to change a setting, because there is no set button, you simply navigate to what you want to change, hold down plus or minus, change the setting, and then hit the power button to confirm. I also like that the XLR plug can rotate so you can position the receiver however you need to. On all of these devices, you have 96 channels to choose from in either Group A or Group B. On the RX9 receiver, you can output mono, so both channels mixed down, or stereo, which sends Group A to the left channel and Group B to the right channel on your recording device, whether that's a camera or something like my Tascam DR60D Mark II. The XLR 9 receiver can still accept both Group A and Group B, so 2 inputs, but it only outputs a mono signal, 1 output, because that's just what XLR do. All of your transmitters and receivers can be synced up with IR, so you don't have to set each channel manually on each device, although you can if you want. The receivers also let you adjust the output volume levels for each group individually. Now, normally this is where you want to see a range test. How far can I go from the camera with the transmitter and still pick up audio? But I'm not going to do that. One, everyone else already showed what the range was with these 2 or 3 years ago when they first came on the scene, and 2, I'm afraid of the sun. Now, I know. Why are you making a review if you're not going to do the review things? Well, because like usual, I am behind on getting to this piece of gear. So rather than rehash what everyone else has already said, I want to go into the more practical use case side of things. With that said, let me draw your attention to this yellow border. Because see, this is where I made my mistake. The yellow border means that this is an older version of the UwMic9 system. The newer, updated version has a black border around the display. And as it turns out, that's super duper important because the new version has a feature that I believe would fix my main issue with this set. First, I'd like for you to hear some of the work I've actually done with these mics. In my house, things are controlled, but the ad I'm about to show you was shot outside near a fairly busy road and inside where people were working in a restaurant kitchen. I did use iZotope's RX7 plugins in Final Cut to remove some of the background noise, but I applied it pretty gently. Have a listen for yourself.
Hi, I'm Jason. I own Fire Street Pizza.
I also own Fire Street Pizza.
But I built the whole thing.
Oh, you sure did.
I'm also flying a kite, but that's not important. What is important is our pizza. This is my wife, Elise. She keeps Fire Street awesome while I'm out shooting commercials. She wouldn't let me build any of this unless it was totally fire.
I make it fire.
It's not a competition.
This was our first real test of these mics, and for me, they fell down in a few key ways. One, the signal coming from the mic seemed too hot for most of the dialogue. It's no secret you need to turn down the volume on these because the default volume is too high for most cameras and recorders. But even after doing that, the mics still seem to be peaking before it even transmits the signal. The audio never clipped in my camera, but it sounded like it was, and I had to work the EQ in post to remove some of those harsher frequencies. Unfortunately, this also made the dialogue sound a little bit more muddy than I wanted. Second, Group B refused to play nicely. My second transmitter was a disaster. Take a listen to some of the earlier takes we couldn't use because the audio would just drop out.
I also own Fire Street Pizza.
But I built the whole thing.
You sure did. I also own Fire Street Pizza.
But I built the whole thing.
Oh, you sure did.
I'm also flying a kite. But that's not important. What is important?
These sound like RF hits, but I could not narrow down what the actual problem was. I tried different channels, different RF gain settings, even swapping the groups on the mic pack so that Group A was Group B and Group B was Group A. No matter what I did, it would randomly cut out, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. I need to make a disclaimer here. I am not a seasoned veteran when it comes to wireless audio troubleshooting, but I'm also not a complete noob. I've used plenty of systems from Sennheiser, Sony, and even some Electrosonics, and I have never had an issue this bad. Admittedly, I did feel a little rushed on set, and I might have missed something because we had a lot to shoot that day, but I really feel like the system let me down. It ruined several takes, and I just didn't feel like I could count on it. And everyone had to wait on me to try and fix something that shouldn't be having an issue in the first place. So that gives you an idea of what my experience has been with the Lavs. Sometimes they're okay. Other times, they don't want to play nice. Now, for the TX XLR 9 transmitter. For me, so far, it's been almost unusable. I've been using my NTG3 for 5 years, and when I run my cable out to it from a camera or recorder, it sounds great. But with this transmitter, it takes the audio that I know and love and just mangles it like the Zodiac Killer. But just to give you a frame of reference, here's a few examples that I recorded of different setups with the same microphone. This first test is with the NTG3 plugged into my Tascam DR60D Mark II with a cable. As you start to become more familiar with your new camera, it's inevitable that you'll find yourself shooting portraits. A portrait is not necessarily a head and shoulder shot as you would see in a passport or on a wanted poster. It can be an extreme close-up of a beautiful girl's eyes or a wide shot of the local butcher behind his counter. This is with the TR XLR 9 plugged into the microphone with phantom power on and the RX XLR 9 receiving the signal at volume 20 into my Tascam DR60D Mark II. As you start to become more familiar with your new camera, it's inevitable that you'll find yourself shooting portraits. A portrait is not necessarily a head and shoulder shot, as you would see in a passport or on a wanted poster. It can be an extreme close-up of a beautiful girl's eyes or a wide shot of the local butcher behind his counter. This is the TR XLR 9 plugged into the microphone, transmitting to the RX9, which is going out to a 3.5 millimeter jack on the Tascam DR60D Mark II. I have set the volume to 20 just like with the XLR 9, but I have had to increase the gain just a little bit on the Tascam. As you start to become more familiar with your new camera, it's inevitable that you'll find yourself shooting portraits. A portrait is not necessarily a head and shoulder shot as you would see in a passport or on a wanted poster. It can be an extreme close-up of a beautiful girl's eyes or a wide shot of the local butcher behind his counter. Okay, so just for kicks, this is the TR XLR 9 plugged into the microphone and the RX XLR 9 plugged into my C300 Mark III. I have the volume on the XLR 9 set to 20, and I have the input gain on the C300 set to about 3. As you start to become more familiar with your new camera, it's inevitable that you'll find yourself shooting portraits. A portrait is not necessarily a head and shoulder shot as you would see in a passport or on a wanted poster. It can be an extreme close-up of a beautiful girl's eyes or a wide shot of the local butcher behind his counter. I did notice slightly better performance on the body pack receiver than the XLR receiver, but overall it still sounds less than ideal for what I'm used to getting from my mic. I recently did a project where I was on a dolly, and I wanted to run the audio from my boom mic directly into camera. I didn't have an audio engineer on set. It was just going to be me, and it was the easiest way to get stuff set up. It was actually why I bought the XLR transmitter, so that I wouldn't get the XLR cable tangled up in the dolly wheels. When I got back from shooting that, I thought I was going crazy and that I had accidentally set my levels wrong. Take a listen to this.
Work on new housing, parks, bike lanes, and nearly 50 million in developments is underway. upping the allure of existing neighborhoods and local arts and culture.
After some more testing though, I discovered that it was actually the transmitter that was causing the audio to sound overmodulated and distorted. No matter what I do, it sounds way more harsh and crunchy than it should. I've tried to lower the volume way down on the receiver, but then I have to crank up my gain in the recorder. This introduces more noise, and surprise, it sounds exactly the same, but with a higher noise floor. Now, I hired a sound mixer for another gig after that one, and I had him take a look at it, and after listening to it for a couple of minutes, he basically said, run the cable, don't try to use that thing, it doesn't work. If you're going to review a product, you need to give it a fair shake. It's possible that I just got a bad copy. I mean, it happens, especially to me for some reason. So I called the support number on Saramonic's website. Here's what I was told.
To get to the best possible answer, if you can send this in an email to me, I can pass it on to the product manager. I'm working at home, so I can't transfer any calls, and he's working at home, and so. But we work by email, and he's very quick and easy. So just send an email explaining the exact models that you have and what they're experiencing. If you have a sample, even that even helps.
Okay.
All right. Then we'll get
I'll record some samples and get those over to you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay, no worries. We're all trying to make things work with COVID and all of the restrictions, so no problem. I recorded the samples that I showed you earlier and I sent it in. This is the email that I got back. Hello, Garrett. I can certainly hear the difference, however slight. I will say that when plugging in a microphone via XLR versus going wireless, you're going to hear a stark contrast. This is with our system, as well as any wireless system on the market, with the exception of extraordinarily high-priced systems like Zexcom or Lectronics. I believe he means Lectrosonics here, but it doesn't matter. The reason this is because wireless systems have to compress and then expand the audio signal, compressing at the transmitter and expanding at the receiver. You will also notice a difference in the frequency response because the high highs and the low lows are often rolled off or removed. This is because the system does that to save resources. It can only send so much data wirelessly, or because it cannot handle the frequency response. Many times, it's because of all three reasons. The Rode NTG3 is a fantastic microphone and is capable of some extraordinary detail with hugely wide frequency response. Unfortunately, wireless, especially in this price point, is not capable of recreating that kind of detail. I will always tell anyone, if you can run the cable to the mic. You're going to get great sound no matter what. If you can't run the cable and need to go wireless, you're going to have some limitations from the original sound source. I can fully understand if this is not up to your needs. In that case, I would certainly suggest that you return to the dealer you purchased the TX XLR9 from for a refund. But I will also let you know, you will likely get this type of limitation even with wireless systems that are twice the price. You will get better sound out of a system that costs $800 like the Sennheiser, but with the shotgun plugged in via XLR, you would have to spend more than twice that to get something where you could not tell the difference, and for that I would suggest Lectronics 400 series at about $2,500. I'm sorry I couldn't help, but I hope my explanation sheds a little light on the issue. Regards, Gary. Now, I am certain that Gary is a very knowledgeable technician, and I appreciate that he took the time to write up something that explains a little bit more about how things work under the hood. He's also right that if you can run the cable, you should, because it's going to be the best signal you can get, hands down, every time. But the Sennheiser system kind of having a frequency reduction, even at that price point, well, I wasn't sure if that matched up with my own experience. But, like I said, a fair shake is required for every product. So, let's try the Sennheiser out and see. So for this test, I have the Sennheiser 500 series G4 wireless XLR transmitter plugged into the microphone, and I have the 500 series G4 body pack receiver on the Tascam DR60D Mark II. I have sensitivity set in the transmitter to negative 18 decibels, a feature that is not in the Saramonic transmitter. And yeah, let's see how it sounds. As you start to become more familiar with your new camera, it's inevitable that you'll find yourself shooting portraits. A portrait is not necessarily a head and shoulders shot, as you would see in a passport or on a wanted poster. It can be an extreme close-up of a beautiful girl's eyes, or a wide shot of the local butcher behind his counter. It can be an extreme close-up of a beautiful girl's eyes, or a wide shot of the local butcher behind his counter. If there is a difference between the Sennheiser and the cable, it's so very, very minor. I really can't tell the difference. Maybe someone more trained than I can, but for the work that I'm doing, the Sennheiser sounds great, and I can still EQ it without making the distortion problem worse. For example, here's some of those same clips, but with an EQ applied in post. It can be an extreme close-up of a beautiful girl's eyes or a wide shot of the local butcher behind his counter. It can be an extreme close-up of a beautiful girl's eyes or a wide shot of the local butcher behind his counter. It can be an extreme close-up of a beautiful girl's eyes or a wide shot of the local butcher behind his counter. The Saramonic system's problem gets worse when you try to add clarity to the voice, and that's where things become unsatisfactory to me, because that harsh buzzing sound you hear is in those middle frequencies where the voice sits. Now, as far as the support email goes, it did feel a little towards the end like a long way of saying, I don't know, it's $150, man, what did you expect? But to Garrett's credit, he did say he understands if it's not meeting my needs and I should get my money back. Too bad I waited too long to get this review done and I'm past the return period. Gary, if you're watching this, I do appreciate your time and the education on wireless transmission. You seem like you genuinely wanted me to understand what I was dealing with, and I think that's cool. So this leads up to the updated version. Why is it important? Really, it all comes down to one added feature. On the updated transmitters with the black label, you have the option to set your input gain. So if the mics are a little hot or you've got someone who speaks loudly, you can avoid distortion by lowering how sensitive your mic capsule actually is before it transmits the signal. I'm 90% certain that this is my main issue with the system that I have. Sure, I can change the volume output from the receiver, but not being able to adjust the input gain means I don't really have control over my signal chain. And if you're losing data early on in the signal chain, there's nothing you can do about it down the line. When it's blown up here, it's blown down there. Here's the weird thing about the update to this lineup. The older version hasn't dropped in price. When you look on Amazon, you can see the old version and the new version right next to each other, and they're the same price. So you'd be forgiven not noticing there's much of a difference. I actually bought the yellow one because it's the look I saw in the reviews that I watched. I was bamboozled by my own research. And I know what you're thinking. Garrett, you're an idiot. Why didn't you look at both the listings and see what the difference was? Well, you answered your own question. It's because I'm an idiot. Also, I bought half the kit on B&H. Then they were out of stock of the rest, so I pieced the rest together on Amazon and never even saw the black label version when I typed in the model number. It's also worth noting that there is no update to the TX XLR9 transmitter. So you're not getting any gain adjustment with your Phantom Power XLR mics with this system, no matter what you do. So should they sit on the best budget wireless system throne? Maybe? I mean, definitely not the yellow label versions, which are missing one of the most basic audio features you can imagine, adjusting your input gain. But the black label version, well, yeah, I would say so, as long as that change fixes the distortion problem that I've experienced. You can get a two-person kit for $400, and you can add an XLR receiver for $150 so you don't have to dangle cables anywhere, as long as you don't need to separate the mics out to different channels. If you get the black label version, I'm sure those would be a great fit for low-budget productions where there's not a lot of pressures. Indie short films, YouTube channels, that sort of thing. That seems to be what these are made for, and I'm sure the black label UwMic9 system is more than enough for people just getting started and looking to save a few bucks. Saramonic has brought a lot of features, like being able to change your RF gain for distance or battery preservation at a truly unbeatable price. This yellow set just feels like a prototype version of what they were trying to make. If you're doing paid work for clients, I wouldn't recommend these. It hurts to spend money, I know, but get the Sennheisers or the Sonys and eliminate potential failure points. Your clients are worth it, and you're less likely to end up flustered when your budget option gives up on you. Or if you don't have the $1,200, I think it is, for Sennheiser's 100 series G4 kits, buy a boom mic and run a cable. You can do it for about as much as this kit costs, and you'll have much better audio. There's not a lav in the world that can compete with a well-placed boom. So if you don't have any audio kit, that's where you should start. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. I appreciate you guys taking the time to watch these little videos we're making. Sorry the set wasn't more impressive. I just didn't want to destroy the whole house to review this microphone set. But if you liked the video, make sure you drop a like down below, hit subscribe, and if you didn't like it, I would love to hear your constructive criticism down in the comments. Just let me know what you would like to see me do, test more thoroughly, or what it is that you'd like to see a little bit different. And I'll try to do my best to improve these as we go along. Thanks.